Welcome to Android Authority on Air, the original Android Hangout show on Google+. I'm Derek Ross.
I'm Scott Anderson.
I'm Dan Charlton.
And I'm Jonathan Franklin.
This week on Android Authority on Air, we're going to talk about the Motorola X phone, also known as the Moto X. We're going to talk about the new announced HTC One Google Edition that was just announced today. Very exciting. We're going to talk about some other devices that were rumored and also announced this past week, some app updates, some actually very interesting app updates, and some rootin' and ramen information, CM 10.1, all the things. And then we're going to have a big, lengthy discussion about the state of the union, the state of the Nexus program, with all these stock vanilla Android devices coming out. It's very interesting times that we're in. It's something a lot of Android fans have wanted for a long time. So I'm excited to talk about it. So let's get started and talk about my favorite thing. I think that we're going to talk about tonight: the Moto X phone, the Moto X. We have heard this for forever. It's been leaked all over the place. We've seen screenshots. We've seen leaked images, from out of out of Vietnam. We've seen a phone that looked like a Nexus 4 met a Razr Max. It was kind of like a squarer-looking Nexus 4 almost. Ever since then, we've heard Nexus, or we've heard Motorola X phone this, Motorola X phone that. We saw job postings on LinkedIn that were removed after everybody found out about them for an X phone project manager. We've heard people from Google, specifically, Larry Page and Eric Schmidt, say we're really excited about what Motorola is coming down with in their pipeline. We heard that phones should last all day long. You shouldn't be tethered to a charger. And Larry Page has kept, he keeps saying phones shouldn't go splat when you drop them. So all these things keep pointing towards an awesome phone and a phone for Motorola to bring them out of the ashes, because Motorola hadn't been doing so well in the past so many years compared to other people, other companies in this space. So we're really excited for what Motorola can do, because they invented the damn smartphone. You know what I mean? Like, Motorola, you guys are gonna disagree with me?
Sure, but not the smartphone.
Okay. I'm sorry. They invented the cell phone, but do you guys want to? Can you disagree or agree with me that Motorola radios are amazing? Like they make some of the best radios.
They definitely do
don't
the
make
best
them anymore.
antenna design out of anybody. They really put a big focus on antenna placement and their software stack. I mean, drivers and everything.
Motorola phones have just
they have a lot of
had
technology
superior signal quality for as far as I can remember. So I'm really excited for this. So anyways, yes, the Motorola X phone, aka the Moto X, as they're calling it, is real. We found out at All Things Digital, aka D11. I don't even know why they're calling it D11, to be honest with you. But anyways,
That's how long that's how long it is.
Also, it's the 11th digital All Things Digital conference. Okay, so now you learn something new every show. Okay, so at the All Things D, aka D11 this year, we found out that the Motorola X phone, the Moto X, is real. And what's interesting is they're advertising it as the first smartphone that will be fully assembled, fully built in America. And they're making a very big deal about that, saying that no other smartphone has ever been built in America before. They're assembled overseas. And now, don't get me wrong. All the parts aren't coming from the U.S. Their display screen and the processor most likely are going to be built overseas or manufactured overseas. Then they're going to be shipped over here to the U.S. Then they'll take everything and do what they do best, mix and match it all up, and come out a smartphone somehow. So that's an interesting take. Motorola says that they're going to be able to reach consumers faster, maintain high quality control, and all sorts of other stuff that the reasoning for building here in the U.S. And that's interesting because, like I said, we really haven't seen that before.
Yeah, I think the thing that I find most interesting about that is they're talking about a phone that's going to come out later this year that they're going to build entirely in America. Meanwhile, and like on the same website where they're bragging about that, they direct people to where they can get hired for jobs at the factory they are starting to build right now in Texas.
Yeah.
I don't really understand how they're going to be selling a phone to the public in a couple of months, produced at a factory that they're still hiring staff for and building.
They're going to rent out a whole bunch of houses and have
Presumably
workers
they're
go to
building
them.
it somewhere else, and those job postings are not to build this particular device, but the next device.
Well, it was a Nokia facility before then, so I guess maybe they bought the tooling while they were at it. But
I mean, they're still going to have to retool it for
oh
their
yeah,
line.
they definitely have to but it probably won't take as long as
That's
starting.
true. Than building from scratch, yeah.
So it's down in Fort Worth, Texas. If anybody was curious where it's at,
Fort Worth.
it's in Dallas.
I think it's Dallas Fort Worth, yeah.
Fort Worth is basically the same area. It's like 2 miles apart, and it's one big massive metropolis. Dallas Fort Worth area. So we still really don't know a lot about the Moto X in terms of hardware. We've heard a lot of different speculations, a lot of different rumors. So we're not going to really talk about that because you know what. We don't need to rumor monger about this phone anymore. We've done it enough. But let's talk about what we do know. At All Things D, Motorola said that the Moto X was going to be very contextually aware. It's going to know when it's in your pocket and pulled out of your pocket, whether you're biking, you're driving, you're walking. And now you're saying, well, all of that sounds familiar. A lot of phones can do that now, based on Google APIs, and which is correct because they also said that the phone is going to heavily leverage the new Google APIs that were announced at I/O. So
what it kind of reminds me of initially, hearing that is the S4, S3, all of Samsung's bloatware regarding their, it'll pause the video when you're looking away and stuff like that. That's what it initially reminds me of, but hopefully they do it well and actually give some use to it and not like bloat, like something that you would always want to have on.
Yeah, S-Health really taps into all those sensors, which that's probably one of the least offensive one of their bloatware apps, but it's still an app that you'd probably use a third party for anyway.
Yeah, or pulling the phone up to your head and having it answer the phone call. I mean, that's like a usable feature, but, it needs to be foolproof and it needs to work all the time. Face unlock was has turned into kind of like not really use it that much. I mean, there are some people that use it, but it doesn't work 100% of the time. But that's what Google really needs. They need something that uses the sensors that works very well and isn't considered bloat and something that people use as, an afterthought.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Google is making all of this data accessible to anybody, and Motorola is trying to actually take that data and make it useful and apply it. So I definitely hope that they can do that well. And even if they only do it okay, it's such a good direction for them to be going in, because they're doing it in a different way than Samsung is. I mean, you're right about Samsung, but Samsung.
And we're back on air. And we are back, I believe.
We may or may not have dropped off air there, Gary.
If you guys can see us, please comment. Thank you.
Yeah, that was interesting. The technical difficulties, the live streaming bug that happens from time to time. I don't know. I lost connection.
It used to happen a lot, but now it's better.
I haven't had it happen in months. Well, you know what that says. But it wasn't a Google Hangout disconnection. Like my actual machine lost network connection. Like my I don't know, Comcast decided, you know what, we're going to cut your internet for a second, which is odd because I have an impeccable internet connection normally. So oh well, whatever. We're back. Yay!
Hopefully.
So those of you that are listening to this later, yeah, and watching it later, sorry about the screw ups. I'm sure that was not something you planned on seeing,
Okay.
but hey. So what were we talking about? I don't remember. Motorola X phone?
Moto X phone sensors and them using them. Dan?
Yeah, using the sensors. And I think that by going in this direction and not going in the ridiculous assault of color and bloat that is TouchWiz, or just the dated and excessiveness of Sense, if they're going to go with a stripped-down UI that's maybe just lightly modified, like Moto Blur had become before Google bought them anyway, and then their S stuff, their bloat is actually useful contextual awareness, applications. I think that's excellent. But I think even just pushing the contextual awareness and taking advantage of these new APIs is going to push other developers and other applications and other thinkers to push it even further.
For those of you who are listening or watching, what do you think a good idea or implementation that Moto or any type of phone manufacturer could do that would not be considered bloat that you would want to use on a daily basis? I'm kind of curious as to what they can actually do, because it's going to be something that's going to have to be useful but not bloated up.
On the topic of that, Motorola already has one of the best contextual apps, Smart Actions, which is actually a really good app. And adding in Google's current APIs to Smart Actions just by itself would actually help it out a lot. Especially if you could kind of create contextual location-based stuff that doesn't use a lot of power, it would really kind of help it out a lot. It would help them make Smart Actions more
in using
accessible to the average user. You know what I mean? Because Tasker and stuff is powerful, but people just get confused with it.
And John, think about using the new fencing or mesh, location API. With that, I think that could be big. So I'm excited as to what they're going to roll out. So what carriers is this coming on? None have been announced yet. But if you watched this last week, or you follow Android news, you'll know that the Moto X has passed through the FCC with Sprint radios, Sprint compatibility, with AT&T compatibility, and with Verizon compatibility. They announced that there would be heavy U.S. carrier support, so that makes me believe probably T-Mobile would be supported as well.
I'd be very surprised if the AT&T version didn't also run on T-Mobile.
Yeah, exactly. So just because we haven't seen it yet, and this is just all speculation based off of us reading a document at the FCC, doesn't mean it's not coming, or doesn't, like Dan said, doesn't mean it's not supported. So fingers crossed, confidence extremely high. All major carriers will support it in the U.S.
Question, do you guys think that this is going to be pushing the envelope with regards to hardware specs, or is this going to be more so a high-end hardware specs, but more so software features as a selling point?
I think it depends on when it comes out.
Let's say it comes out towards the end of the year.
Then yes, I think they'll be using it.
They said this summer, so we know it's coming out this summer.
Okay, so 2
If
months?
it's late summer, I think they'll be trying to push a Snapdragon 800 into it, and yeah, pushing the hardware boundaries.
Okay.
So I'm going to say, do you remember a few months back, rumors were that this was going to be a truly affordable phone, it was going to be low-end specs, and it was going to be a phone it was a mid-range phone available to everybody. And that a lot of people are like, okay, that's cool, cheap phone, and it's not that, the hardware is not horrible. But then, we heard yesterday that Motorola said that the X line is going to be the future. It's going to be their new focus. I don't think they're going to start out a major overhaul to the company and to their line with something that's something that's not going to have good specs, something that's not going to be flagship. I really hate saying that word, but flagship esque. I think that they're going to do good with it. I think they're going to impress us.
And they should.
Yeah.
Because this is their coming back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how long has it been since they bought Motorola Mobility?
The deal closed last summer.
Okay, so it will be roughly a year, and hopefully that's enough time.
The first device that Motorola's put out that will have been fully designed since they were owned by Google.
I'd say like 80%.
Yeah, I would say they're probably working with a current product line, but that's not necessarily horrible because
Yeah.
I mean, like the Razr wasn't a bad phone. It was really late to the party, but it wasn't worse than. The biggest thing that Motorola has to do from a hardware perspective is improve on cameras and displays. Those are the two biggest things because the build quality's always been there. I liked the feel of the Kevlar. I think they should have done a better job and used like a dark resin so it didn't look like Kevlar.
Or the Droid X, that thing was a beast.
Oh, the Droid X was built like a tank.
I think a lot of people had that phone.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing they need to do is not release a Moto X Max 3 months later.
Oh God, I don't think that they'll do that. Hopefully, they learned.
Or Moto X QHD.
I don't want
HD.
I don't want to see that. I really don't.
Okay. So we have some user comments here. Let's hit a few of those up here. Let's move on to another topic. So Michael Brown asks, any thoughts on a Galaxy Nexus 2 or a Nexus 4 CDMA version for Sprint or for Verizon? I'm going to say, wow, I would love that because I'm a Verizon customer. But yeah, that's not going to happen.
Not in a million years.
I think Michael, I think you and I will have to hold out for the next best thing to a true Nexus and get the X phone. That's my opinion. You guys agree with that?
Yeah. I would be very surprised if another Nexus branded device ever runs on Verizon CDMA again.
I don't expect Verizon to get a Nexus until and AWS could completely kill it, but until there's open access to the LTE network and CDMA is not a factor, I don't expect to see a Nexus. I'll expect to see more developer edition phones that nobody buys until somebody just puts out a phone that can't be cracked. And the other thing I would expect is typical Verizon, any variant of a phone you get is going to be demonstrably worse than anything you'd get on any other carrier. It's going to come bloated. It's going to come with stupid modifications that shouldn't have been made, and it's going to have a locked bootloader. So developer editions and just expect to get. Well, I mean, Verizon's in a little bit of a slump right now because they just tend to sit on devices until Christmas time and milk everybody then. But yeah, your Galaxy S line, your flagship phones like that are going to be what you're going to see on Verizon. I doubt you're going to see an AOSP device on it for a while.
And speaking of Verizon, let's hit up another question here. X-Shocks Z100 on YouTube says, what about the Verizon HTC One? And that's unconfirmed. That's based off of rumors and leaks. EV Leaks is generally pretty good. Pretty much what EV Leaks says generally turns out to be true. So if he puts out a leaked image that shows the HTC One on Verizon, and if FCC has a DLX Plus phone that looks internally exactly like the HTC One, chances are it sounds like it's going to come out. But the thing with rumors is and speculations, you never know. That would be great for HTC if it did happen. I think that it would be great for them and great for Verizon. Verizon hasn't put out a phone in 7 months, so something needs to happen soon.
It's kind of crappy on Verizon's end that the One would be out that long, and they would at least not announce it when the S4 came out, because there are a lot of people that would like to have,
It's not surprising.
It's not surprising, no. It's just crappy that they wouldn't
Verizon
say, hey, we've got something coming. We're working on something for you guys.
Verizon treats manufacturers like crap, though. This isn't surprising. They almost single-handedly killed Palm by ordering 1 million devices and then refusing to pay for them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, that's what caused Palm to die. When they got stuck with all of these only run on Verizon devices that Verizon asked them to build that they then couldn't sell.
All right, so let's
around all over the place. Look at the what did they end up calling it? The Verizon Merge, which was basically the Evo Shift on Verizon that had been rumored and like gone through the FCC and didn't come out until like a year and a half later.
All right, so let's talk about the HTC One, since we're talking about it as well. Let's talk about the HTC One Google Edition or Google Experience, Google Edition, whatever you want to call it, that was announced today as well. It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's the HTC One that runs stock Android. It's going to be available the same date as the Samsung Galaxy S4 Google Edition, which is June 26th. The SGS4 Google Edition is going to cost $650. The HTC One is going to cost $600, so it's going to be $50 cheaper, which is not. I mean, don't get me wrong. When you're spending $600, what's another 50? But but $50 is $50, so that's nice. That's a little bit cheaper. So
yeah, that is the same as they cost with Sense and TouchWiz respectively as well.
Yeah, so if you were to buy an unsubsidized, if you were to buy an unsubsidized or the developer edition of these phones, or an unlocked version of these phones, they would cost the same price.
Same price? Okay.
Yeah.
And you got to remember that the Galaxy S4 doesn't have a developer edition available like the S3 did. So this is basically the developer edition, and as well with the HTC One. So it's going to be available just like the S4 Google Edition will be available on AT&T and T-Mobile. So a lot of people have a few questions about software. Well, will Beats work? Will the Sense camera work? Will the boom sound work? Well, it's stock Android. It's not Sense. So will Beats audio work? Yes, but are you going to have an icon pop up and say, hey, look, Beats is playing? No, you're not going to have a red icon pop up and let you know that Beats is being played. You're going to have to go old school and use your ears to determine that higher quality audio is playing. And that's okay. You don't need to see a red icon. All you need to know is that, I got some good quality audio, and start jamming.
It will work, but just no icon.
Yeah, there's not going to be a toggle on and off. You're not going to know.
It's just a bunch of settings of the hardware.
Yeah,
I'm assuming there's going to be an app that comes out that says, like a widget.
Somebody might come up with something. Rooted phones. You know what? If you miss the icon, if you don't know if you're having good quality audio playing or not, your ears don't work too well. Root it. Someone's going to make an icon. I'm not lying. That's going to happen.
There's awesome beats which people are rolling into every ROM that they can get.
Yeah,
for
awesome.
no reason whatsoever.
Awesome beats. Yeah. So
yeah, the rest of that stuff is all proprietary HTC software.
Yeah, so is the IR Blaster going to work? No, you're not going to have an IR Blaster, so you can't have it be...
Because there's no IR Blaster support in stock Android.
So you can't have it control you can't have it be a remote control. Stock Android, you know what? I'm sure somebody will port one over.
They can take the IR Blaster out of the device, though.
Yeah, it's still there.
The problem isn't that it can't IR blast. The problem is that it doesn't have software to let it do that. Somebody's going to come along and write the software.
So, Dan, is there going to be Zoe support, since it's...
No.
Exactly. Zoe is HTC's software. So if you're somebody that needs to do Zoe, you can't do it. But you know what? You can do Photosphere, and you can do all the other cool auto awesome stuff with Google Plus, instant uploads, and all that. So,
And the ultra-pixel technology is independent of the software.
So it's still going to take 4 megapixel pictures.
Yeah, but it's still going to be the super enriched pixels.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to be special. They're going to be special pixels.
They're ultra.
So some people ask some questions about the buttons. Because the HTC One has some weird buttons on it. The back button and the home button are swapped, and there's no middle button. It's just the HTC logo. So how's
the home
that?
button's on the right.
Yeah, exactly. So how's that going to work? So the home button over on the right, if you hit home, well, it goes home. If you long press it, you hold it in for a second, Google Now will pop up. If you long press the back button, you'll get the recents menu. So it'll be programmed around inside the Android code to get it to work. It's just not going to be what you're used to on a regular Nexus-esque device.
This really isn't particularly complicated. I think this is a dumb thing that people complain about. You get 2 buttons that accomplish 4 actions. I think that's a lot better than wasted screen real estate for 3 buttons that accomplish 3 actions.
I agree.
I just want buttons to do things.
So,
I don't care where they are.
We have a question here in relation to what we're talking about here. Justin says, do we think that the Google HTC One will be successful? And I'd say successful is a relative term. Is it going to sell 5 million devices? I would say no. It's going to be for a specific niche market. It's going to be for people like you that are watching this right now that actually know and understand and care about this kind of thing.
Will it sell 1 million?
Probably not.
Yeah, I don't
even think they're going to make that.
I think that it's really just for people that are enthusiasts that want this thing, because you know what? Android isn't a one-size-fits-all platform. It's about choice, and that's what this is. This gives us choice.
There's the other thing that I want to note that has been rumored from HTC today, and that's that they're going to make the Google Edition ROM essentially an option for people that already have the HTC One and chose to take the HTC Dev Unlock. So if you already own an HTC One, you can Google Editionize yours pretty easily just by flashing the ROM, because it's identical hardware. So I think that the measure of success of the Google Edition is kind of irrelevant. In fact, I'd be very surprised if anybody actually specifically tracks it, because it's essentially just another identical phone with slightly different software, and you can very easily pick between both.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, what you're...
But the thing... if you get a subsidized phone and you've got an unlock, the ability to unlock, which somebody like Verizon's not going to give you that, but the majority of them do. AT&T's can be unlocked, then you really have the choice between Sense or AOSP and can go right between both of them. I don't think and it's not just the one. I don't think the one or the S4 Google Edition are going to be particularly successful in sales numbers.
Yeah,
it will give some sustainability to the devices a year and a half from now, because you know good and well that Samsung and HTC on their proprietary software are just not going to update these devices. But you're going to have something that works out of the box whenever relatively close to when a new Android release comes out. You're going to have something that's going to be functional. It's not going to be 3 months worth of begging the developer community to get bugs fixed or anything. You're just going to be ready to go, like a Nexus is. And that part of it is really exciting for anybody that has the device, even somebody that doesn't buy a Google Edition version of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think really these Google Edition devices, I think the physical devices themselves are completely and utterly irrelevant. It's just another S4 and another HTC One. This isn't anything new at all. The only important thing is the code.
It's going to be custom for those devices.
Is going to be available and open source for these devices. They obviously aren't going to open source their own proprietary overlays, but that doesn't matter. It means that when you get your Droid DNA, you don't have to wait 6 months for somebody to hack AOSP onto it. It means, and especially if this is something that device makers do going forward and do sort of at launch as opposed to months after launch, I mean, it's really going to open up the development community, whether anybody buys a single specially branded Google Edition version or not. Because once you have the device of any edition, the code's going to run on it. And that's all that matters, it's the code.
Okay, so let's talk about a smaller announcement, Derek.
Smaller?
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Mini.
Yeah, so if you're like Scott, you like things that are a little bit smaller. You can't handle something as big in your hand. So you might like the Samsung Galaxy S4 Mini. It's a 4.3 inch AMOLED QHD screen. So it's not the most impressive screen, but I don't really think it's supposed to be. I think it's just supposed to look like a smaller S4 on the outside, and the inside is nothing like it.
It's an S4 on
just regular AMOLED.
It's an S4 on less roids. And have you guys we have come to the day and age where a 4.3-inch screen is a mini screen. Did you guys think that we'd ever be here?
No.
Back when the Droid X was
This is
out.
the size of the Evo, the original Evo.
Evo.
Did you ever think that was going to be the small? Oh man, it baffles me.
Yeah, so besides a smaller screen, it's smaller all around. 8 gig storage, 8 megapixel camera. The front-facing camera is 1.9. The battery is a 1900 milliamp hour. It does come with Android 4.2.2. Like I said, it's an S4 Mini, and the processor is. We don't really know, but it's probably going to be a Snapdragon 400. It's going to be 1.7 gigahertz dual-core processor. So Samsung didn't really come out and say what it is, but chances are it'll be a Snapdragon 400. So it'll be a little bit less powerful. Like I said, it's not. I don't like calling it an S4 Mini because it doesn't have the same specs. It's like a. It's
Doesn't
like
matter.
a.
Doesn't matter.
To the HTC One S.
That's what they call it. Okay. It'll,
You didn't hear
As compared to the One S,
Listen to
it's got the same 4.3-inch AMOLED QHD screen. It's got a slightly faster, newer processor, really, but the same underlying architecture and Qualcomm make.
Yeah. All right. So another device. Anybody ever play with the HTC Flyer from when was that out? Like 3 years ago. HTC Flyer was before its time, in my opinion. It was a honeycomb tablet. It was a 7-inch honeycomb tablet back before 7-inch tablets were cool. Nobody used a 7-inch tablet. It was like, ooh, it's a 7-inch tablet. Well, you need a 10. It was, and they didn't sell a whole lot of them. They did.
Gingerbread.
What's that?
I said it had a stylus and gingerbread.
Yeah. Well, it came with gingerbread and it was upgraded to honeycomb.
gingerbread
All the way to
rock.
honeycomb. Ooh.
Yes, but it was a 7-inch tablet. And the only other one, to correct me if I'm wrong, was the original Galaxy Tab from Samsung at that time. That was John Gingerbread?
So wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that and countless Chinese cheap
knockoff 7-inch brands. Okay.
Right.
All right. So anyways,
Yes.
I had a chance to play with one 2.5, 3 years ago, whenever that was, and I liked the Flyer. It was neat. It was a nice device. It was actually faster than my Acer Iconia 10-inch tablet that I had at the time, and I liked it. So why am I talking about? Why am I going down memory lane? Well, good old EV Leaks. He lets us know basically what we need to know when we need to know it, and he told the world that HTC is coming out with a T6 was the the model number, so similar to to like the 1 became the M7. So I'm sorry, I said that backwards. The M7 became the 1. So the HTC T6 is a rumored 5.9-inch smartphone, not a tablet. But the reason I compared it to the Flyer was because there's only an inch difference, and I loved the Flyer. I really did. So
have a stylus.
Yeah, it did have a stylus. So this is going to be. I hate this term phablet, but people are calling it a phablet. I hate that term. It's just a big ass phone. Rumored specs are a Snapdragon 800, which isn't readily available yet. So who knows? End of the summer, maybe the fall, when this thing actually comes to fruition. We really don't know. 2 gigs of RAM, 16 gig internal with a micro SD slot, and a 3,300 milliamp hour battery. and an ultra-pixel rear camera. So it's kind of like an HTC One
On steroids.
meets the HTC
Ultra-pixels.
Fire in size, and it's just all sorts of badass.
Yeah, I mean, this is really their answer to the Galaxy Note.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, the Galaxy Note and the Optimus G Pro.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's cool. Man, if this thing comes to Verizon, I don't know. I like HTC devices, I do. But, at that time, I'll be rocking the Moto X, so I won't want anything to do with it.
This is a question for Derek. Why doesn't anyone ever give the droid DNA props?
Why doesn't anyone ever give the droid DNA props? All right, so I happen to be a
wrong person.
You know what? I could rant about this for. Honestly, we're gonna have a show special where I just talk about the DNA for an hour.
Kevin Noteboom, this is what you caused. This is the rant.
I'm gonna try
The
to.
rant that you started.
I'm going to give a 2-minute max, try for 1 minute discussion on this phone. This phone has a gorgeous screen. The screen's awesome. It's 1080p. Yeah, I like the screen. All right, so that's the only thing in my opinion that is good about this phone. It's hard as hell to press the power button up here. You have to you can't cut your fingernails for 2 weeks so you can press the power button. I've never owned a phone where you you have to degrade your own personal hygiene so you can turn it on and off. I hate hardware keys. I do. And I hate Sense. And this thing now has a 90% working AOSP ROM. So I'm not the best person to talk about the DNA. The DNA has a great screen. Battery life isn't pathetic. If you like Sense, it's a nice phone. If you're an Android enthusiast that likes to crack flash things, you're not going to like the phone. But it has a gorgeous screen, and that's why I bought this device, because I wanted something that had an awesome screen, and I couldn't use the Nexus 4 on Verizon, obviously. So it's not a bad phone. I'm a critical bastard because I hate it. And I hate it for reasons that most people wouldn't hate it.
Okay, thank you for that rant.
All right, that's enough. That's enough. All right, I apologize.
Reoccurring question in the comments is: will the X phone, the Moto X, compete with the S4 and the HTC One?
Well, I think we speculated a little bit earlier that we think it'll definitely be a high-end phone and not a mid-range device. And so I definitely think absolutely.
It will give them a run for their money.
Similarly spec'd, or else even better spec'd.
I think it has to be better spec'd, or they're in trouble.
All right, so Sheldon wants to know why I hate the term phablet. Well, 2 years ago, how long has it been since the Note came out? Has it been a year and a half, 2 years? Yeah, roughly a year and a half, 2 years ago, when the original Note came out, people didn't know what to call it because it was a 5-inch device, and most devices weren't that big. So they're like, let's call it a phablet because it's a phone. It's kind of a tablet. You really didn't know what to call it. But that was when it was the only device that was a 5-inch device. Now, almost there's dozens and dozens of devices, flagship devices that are 5-inch devices, such as my DNA. The Oppo Find 5, the Oppo whatever, the Sony Xperia Z. There's Huawei has devices.
Huawei.
There's even devices bigger, like the Huawei has the 6.1 device, the Samsung Galaxy Mega 6.3. Mega. There's so many devices now that are over 5 inches that I don't really consider them phablets. They're just phones. It's now almost a standard to be that big. So I just say it's a phone. It's a phone.
Derek, regarding your HTC One rant, Jason Sandry makes a very good comment. DNA was the one beta. That's good. That's good. He's right on right there.
We appreciate your testing.
Yeah.
But you're also coming to good use.
It's an okay commercial.
Thank
Verizon,
you.
HTC's Farm League, though.
It's not a bad phone. I don't like it. Anyways, don't get me started because I could still talk about it forever. All right, so let's take one more question, then let's hit up some app updates. So Randy wants to know what's the better choice, the One Google Edition or the S4 Google Edition. And that boils down to, well, what's the better choice between the HTC One at the regular and the S4 regular choice? I mean,
build quality. What do you prefer better? It all comes down to build quality. What do you like better?
Yeah.
If we're saying build quality, I think we'll all agree that the One is better in build quality.
And button placements. If you don't like the huge middle button, it's hardware. It's literally the hardware. Go out, touch the phones, put them in your hands, figure out what you like better, and that will be the determinant because the software will be the same on both phones. So what feels better, what you think you can roll around with as a daily driver, that will be the determinant. So go to a store, check it out.
Yeah, that's a good point, Scott. Okay. All right, so Scott, you want to tell us about a few apps that got some updates this week?
Yeah, Google Play Music with their All Access, they've been rolling out a couple of updates recently. The biggest update in this app version that I have been asking for since day one is it added the option to delete tracks from the app, from your library, and get them out of there. It was very hard to do that, so that's a nice feature. You can share a song and add it to a playlist from the Now Playing screen, and you can... What?
Thank God.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why these weren't built in before, but whatever. Beta, right? Remove from my library is now supported as well. Cool stuff. I don't know why those features weren't there before, but a lot of use will go into those. Google Calendar got an update. You can change your default calendar and event colors, which I'm annoyed at seeing the same colors as I have on my desktop, so I wanted to change them. More reoccurring event options, new time and date picker for event creation. It's got that little wheel. It's all UI special. Looks nice. You guys used it?
I have not. Does it have December in it?
Yeah, so...
Well, it's not the app that's built into Android, so...
I know.
I tend to use Digical because they have just better options for seeing your calendar events, like a text month. I mean, that's one thing I don't get that Google hasn't added to their calendar is the ability to actually read text and see what events are coming up in the month instead of the little bar that...
Yeah, that's a good point. Also launching a location, like if you have a location for a event, it'll launch Google Maps. I don't think it did that before. Searchable time zone picker, because we love our time zones, right? And you got to be in the right one.
Yeah, Scott, remember when you didn't know what time zone you were in?
Now I know, and I was educated about a year ago. So,
so now that you have this new update on your phone and tablet, you should always know what's time zone you're in.
It's going to help me, and I will spread the word on what time zone I'm in.
I'm pretty sure the other people around you know what time zone they're in.
I will find some. I will find someone that does not know, and I will educate them. Okay. Gmail app update is coming. The desktop UI got revamped. If you've seen screenshots for it, looks beautiful in my opinion. Looks more user friendly. What do you guys think? I mean, you haven't been able to use it, but the screenshots, they look better.
I mean, I've applied the update on my desktop Gmail, so I've gotten to play with it a little bit. And I mean, it's nice in its organization. I'm not necessarily wild about the tabs.
It's different.
Yeah, it's different, and it's a little bit off-putting, and I feel like it doesn't surface information as well.
It will learn over time, maybe.
Yeah, the tabs will say on the top if you have new emails in those categories, but they don't give you just a general unread account or how many you have in that tab account.
Yeah. No, I've
also noticed that there's a lot less ads. The top bar of ads that are always in Gmail isn't there. But I have noticed it inserting ads sort of in line with emails, where I see my list of emails and the very top one is an ad, but it kind of looks like an email.
Okay, moving on. They released a app, Google Admin. It's for Google accounts, business accounts, and
Google app accounts, yeah.
Google Apps accounts, and it allows basically the management team to, oversee and add members and edit things and email people and.
Well, you can manage user accounts basically on the go. You don't have to log into the web. You can reset a password or add a user account. Simple things like that.
Very nice for systems administrators of Google Apps accounts.
As a sysadmin, I applaud the app.
Yes.
Very nifty.
I have a question here that it's about the DNA, and you know what? You guys are gonna keep bringing me back to it. All right, so Kevin wants to know
Look what you did, Kevin.
Kevin wants to know, should you root the DNA, or just wait until they finally release the updated Jelly Bean version, or will you really want the Moto X? And that boils down to your own personal taste and personal choices. I rooted mine the second I got it because I like to do that. That's a hobby of mine. I like to do more. I like to tinker. If you like to do that too, then yeah, go ahead. There's a near 100% working. I say near 100%, but there's a near perfect CM 10.1, which is Android 4.2.2 AOSP based ROM available. The only thing that really doesn't work right now is the microphone's kind of shaky when you're doing like voice to text. So if I go to talk to it and say in the Google Voice search, it may only pick up a couple of the words
or think you're saying
or it won't even pick anything up, or it doesn't understand me at all. If I put my Nexus 7 right beside it and talk, and have a conversation with it, the Nexus 7 picks up everything. The DNA half the time is junk. But they're continually fixing stuff like NFC just got working. Bluetooth audio just got working. There's no more forced closes or crashes whenever you watch a YouTube video in landscape and turn it to portrait. Like, all these bugs are continually getting fixed and fixed and fixed. So CM 10.1 actually makes me like the phone, because I can play around with it and do more stuff with it. So I don't hate it as much as I used to. But the very moment I can pre-order the Motorola X, I'm ordering one for my wife and I'm ordering one for myself. Because
what does your wife rock right now?
My wife is using my old Galaxy Nexus.
Okay.
So, but I'm that confident that I will like it that much more because I don't like hardware keys, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be software keys, and it's going to look exactly like the Nexus 4, maybe a little more rectangular-ish, and I like the Nexus 4. So anyways, yeah, it's all personal preference. You do what you want. You do what makes you happy. Android isn't one size fits all. You can customize it to however you want or not.
Calling it right now, the X phone's going to come out with a version. Derek's going to buy it, pre-order it, and then they're going to come out with another version. I'm going to call it 2.5, 3 weeks after, and Derek will be in the same spot he is now. Okay.
All right. So we were talking about root and CM 10.1. So let's continue on with that segment, I guess. Good timing, Kevin. Thank you for leading us into that segue. CM 10.1 release candidate 3 is now available for various devices. So go ahead and hit up get.cm and see if RC3 is available for your device. It's bigger, better, more stable. It's slowly approaching a full stable version, but the release candidates are pretty much completely stable anyways. It's just fixing probably a bug or two that you may not even be aware about, but they're trying to squash as many bugs as possible, so go ahead and check it out. Who doesn't like a completely stable non-buggy ROM? I know I can't wait till my last bug or two is stable on this, but that has nothing to do with CM. That's more of a HTC device.
You gotta squash those bugs.
Okay, so we have some other questions here. Has anybody played with the Oppo Find 5? Dan, John? That one we've all read reviews on it. Other guys here at Android Authority
would put a good reputation with.
Yeah, well, other guys here at Android Authority have used it.
Everyone I've seen that has one, absolutely.
And they enjoyed it. All right, so we have a question here. What is your opinion of the Oppo Find 5, considering this, versus the Galaxy S4 and HTC One? It's another high-end device. It's another nice device. From what some of my colleagues here at Android Authority, they, did reviews on the device, liked the device a lot. It's a high-quality built device. If you want to give it a try, I would say, go ahead. Now that versus the SGS4, the HTC One. I mean, it all boils down to software and your own personal preference for hardware. If I had to choose one of those three, I'd still probably choose the HTC One, then probably the Find 5, and then the Galaxy S4. How about you guys?
I think that's probably my order as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say the Find 5 and the One are almost even there for me, and the S4 would be the last choice.
It really is impressive to me how low quality Samsung's build is. Right, they're charging
how popular they are.
$50 premium versus the One, and pretty much everybody everywhere recognizes that the One is vastly higher quality build than the S4. The Oppo Find 5. Oppo is not a big name manufacturer like HTC or Samsung, and yet their build quality is better than Samsung's. LG's device build quality is getting to be better than Samsung's, and they used to be a joke.
It's all in the marketing.
And I think it really boils down to it because the HTC One, we argue that it's better, and it has sold half the amount of devices that the S4 has, and some insanely calculated due to some type of math number came out a little bit ago that this year they think, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but 80 million S4 devices are going to be sold. Let's say it's even half that. That's still insane.
35 max.
So it boils down to marketing, as Scott said. You see Samsung heavily flooding the market, pushing their product name and their brand. You just don't see that with HTC. So
and I don't think HTC has the budget for it because right now they're not making a whole bunch of money. But Samsung, they're this vast company, and they, as we've put it, throw phones at a Velcro wall and see what sticks, and that's what they're going all out on their marketing.
Well, the question was asked earlier: what can the Moto X phone compete? And that's where they have to compete at. If Google wants Motorola to be successful, and Google is the world's largest advertising company, that's where they have to hit Samsung at. They're not going to just throw a great device on the shelf and expect the average consumer to adopt it. But with the Nexus 7, they put together a really good marketing campaign. If they do something like that and then elevate it and actually get it on TV, then that phone has a chance to actually get back. But until you overcome Samsung's marketing budget, nobody is going to outperform them. Just because Samsung spends more money than... Really, they spend more money than Apple and HTC by a good margin. And that's really the... of their success right now.
It's not surprising that Apple and Samsung have the majority of the profits in the mobile space when Apple and Samsung spend the majority of money on advertising in the mobile space.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They spend far more than Asus or HTC or LG or Google or Motorola, and they reap the rewards of that.
All right, so we have another question here, and I think this is a good question. So Sean wants to know, what do we think is going to happen to the Razer line after the Moto X is released? And I think that Motorola kind of hinted at today or yesterday, that the Motorola X line is the new future of Motorola. That's going to be their new flagship, line. They're going to come out with Razer still. I would say probably not, but they're going to still support them, until they reach end of life. And the Razer HD line is not even a year old yet. That'll, come this fall, it'll be a year old. So I would look for it to be supported, for 18 months, just because that's what usually Nexus devices are supported for. And I could be completely wrong on that, but
support there is a pretty loose term.
I would say updates. How about that?
Motorola's done a lot.
Don't count on updates. Definitely don't hope for updates.
With the older devices, Motorola's done better than in the last, I'd say, 6 to 8 months. They've done better than anybody has. Of course, it's hard to turn around a a reputation like that. But the Bionic is on Jelly Bean at least. The Charge and Thunderbolt aren't.
But that's a good point. Yeah.
You know, at least they kind of went back and fixed a lot of past mistakes.
Bionic also
There's
came
nothing
out
saying
roughly
that
3
line
months after
could.
the Thunderbolt, but whatever.
Well, I mean, it came out after, but it didn't come out that long after.
About 8 months, yeah.
It was the big C.
And an entire version of Android later.
All right, so we have another question here, and this is something that it's based pure on speculation. But do you think Samsung's phones will get better build qualities and stay away from plastic?
No.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of their thing, they build plastic phones.
Well, let's not be mean to plastic here because I work in the plastics industry, and that's not. Take the battery cover off of your Samsung whatever phone, turn it around, and feel the inside of the plastic, that textured feel that doesn't have that crappy, oily, hyperglaze coating. But, okay, like Kevlar is an epoxy resin, which is a polymer, it's plastic.
Yeah.
What bonds composites together. So it's not that plastic can't be made to feel good. It's just that Samsung builds the crappiest plastic you could possibly put on there because all of the best luggage is made out of polycarbonate. It's just, can they implement it? And I can tell you right now that there are manufacturing processes where you can make plastic feel just like metal. You can make it feel like any kind of fiber composite you want to, and there are additives to get whatever you want. It's just how they implement the plastic. So they could stay with plastic and just not suck at it, and they'd still have a good feeling phone.
So I think they're going to slightly answer this with the S4 Active. That is going to be a tougher built S4.
All phones that have been made to be tougher have never done well.
Well, that's because the hardware always sucked on them.
That is a very good point, but there has never been a phone that has been a tougher phone or used for on-the-go people or at-work people that has succeeded.
What about that? I'm trying to think what my brother-in-law used to have. Casio. What was it called?
No.
Something like Commando or something. I think that thing's a brick.
Yeah. No, they're great quality phones, and they withstand a lot, but they don't sell that much.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe the S4 Active will change it because it's a well-known name from a manufacturer that sells tons of phones. Maybe who knows?
I just don't think there's a market for that.
All right, so I think it's about that time. So if you have any questions for us, go ahead and hit us up at various corners of the internet, Scott. And where are those corners at?
First corner, I guess we're going to do a circle here. YouTube.
Circles that have corners.
Okay. Glad we're getting this over with. This could go on. YouTube channel for app reviews, hardware reviews, all those things. Derek's making a circle with his hands for all those listening on SoundCloud, which we are on. SoundCloud, if you don't want to use the video feed and just want to subscribe to a RSS feed of audio, SoundCloud audio. Also Podbean and on-air section on the website, androidauthority.com. Any other places?
Basically everywhere. Everywhere you want to be, we are there. Even iTunes.
And our Google Plus page.
All right, guys. Have a wonderful weekend. Dan, John, Scott, and you all out there watching us, thanks for tuning in. I don't even know what you're doing, Scott.
The list